My name is Chris Lee. I run Delta Bus Consultancy, which is one of Invergold Associates. I specialise in coach and bus fleet audits. I lecture on bus infrastructure, especially design and review of bus stations and bus stops. But I'm not doing that. I create and critique exam questions for a CPC Transport Management PSV examination board, and I drive school buses part-time. So, when Charlie asked me to speak, he said, "What are you going to speak on, Chris?" And I said, "Bananas." He said, "You can't talk about bananas, but it'll be a professional conference." So I said, "Okay, just for you, Charlie. I'm going to talk about legislation and the difference, how the different legislations and the same legislation affect the haulage industry and the bus industry." So, for my information, bananas are better than buses. Bananas are better than passengers because. Now, you might wonder how this came about, but when I did my CPC Transport Management course, after 3 hours they went into driver's hours rules, and it was fairly obvious then that there's a major difference between the haulage industry and the bus industry. So I had this sort of running joke over several years: bananas are better than passengers because you can leave a lorry load of bananas in a lay-by overnight and they won't complain. Try it with passengers. And I thought it was kind of amusing until I became a transport manager and I got a phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning from a driver saying, "I'm out of duty hours, I'm out of driving hours, I've got passengers on, what do I do?" So, we can look at the differences in legislation. We're going to start fairly close to home. They're better than passengers because when you look at the GB domestic rules, if you're hauling bananas, you have a short day. The daily duty for the haulage industry is 11 hours. For the bus industry, it's 16 hours. So on the one hand, with the bus industry, you've got, oh, we must treat our drivers well because they're handling a precious cargo, and we must give them lots of relaxation and not make them stressed, otherwise they'll leave the industry. And in the other, they'll say, we've had so many people leaving the industry, we need to crank their hours up. Similarly, if you've got 16 hours on the bus industry, you've similarly got different rest periods. The haulage industry doesn't specify the rest period because you've got at least 13 hours rest, which is more than adequate. But the bus industry, it's got between 8.5 hours and 10 hours because you've got the 16 hours duty. So the typical scenario for a service bus driver would be a daily duty of between 13 and 14 hours with 8.5 to 10 hours break. Similarly, when you get breaks in your daily duty, if you're driving haulage, you can choose when to take your 15 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever. And you can't if you're driving a bus. Let me explain. So this is a fairly typical example of a bus service work. Got two towns, A town and B town, approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes apart. And a service runs between them. The driver gets 5 minutes layover at B town and 15 minutes when he comes back to A town. So, on paper, everything is fine. He gets all the breaks he requires. After 6 hours, he's got 40 minutes break, which exceeds the WDD requirement. And at 16:30, he's had 8.5 hours, 45 minutes break, which exceeds the domestic hours requirement for breaks. All well and good, all on paper, lovely. Here's the reality. When he gets to either A town or B town, he has to unload the passengers, find somewhere to put the bus, do a sweep, check for lost property, change the ticket machine, change the destination blind. That all takes about 5 minutes. So the reality is, after 8.5 hours, he hasn't had that same amount of break that is on paper. He has actually 2 10-minute breaks in 8.5 hours. That's why so many people are leaving the bus industry. That's why I left it to become a school driver. It's very common. I was actually reading in Route 1 yesterday a plea saying, can we please have humans making schedules, because computers do this, that, and humans don't, or drivers don't, because they understand the problems. I'm going to go on to EU rules. They apply to both. Are they appropriate to both sectors? Let's go back. You can leave a lorry load of bananas in a lay-by and they don't complain. So one of my other jobs writing exam questions, one of my associates rang me up and said, can you have a look at this question, please, because it's causing a lot of grief. And I looked at it, I tried to answer it, I couldn't. I realised there was some information missing. And I rang him back and I said, here's what I think's happened. I think you've got a haulage question, or it started out as a haulage question. So, here was probably the original haulage question for the haulage section of the CPC Transport Management exam. An operator wants to take a trailer full of bananas to go from Exeter to Aberdeen. It's single man, so he's going to take 2 days to do it. Duty starts at 6. He knows all the little cuts, lay-bys, farmyards, where he can put a trailer so he can drive to exactly 4.5 hours. His lorry has a sleeper cab. There's the answer. It's the standard textbook answer. It's the one you did on your CPC, your exam, everything, okay? And there he is at 11 o'clock at 16:15, lay-by. There's the young lady just settling down for the night. And there she is having 9 hours sleep. What happens if we convert this to a PSV scenario? Okay. Here's the question. 50 school children to go from Exeter to Aberdeen. Journey will take 2 days. Starts at 6. Driver knows all the lanes. Here's the fun bit. Passengers sleep on reclining chairs. And there's the answer. It's exactly the same as the haulage. What happens if we do that? At around 10:55, the driver says, okay, I need to stop for a 45-minute break. And everyone thinks, yay, burgers, coffee, toilets. That's the reality. Right, and at 16:10, I need to drive for another 4.5 hours. Driver says, okay, stopping for 45-minute break. They say, oh my God, we really want burgers, we really want coffee, I need a loo, right? That's the reality. And just before 1800, when his day shift finishes, he says, we're stopping for the night. And they think, yay, well, we'll take 40 towers, thank you very much. And that's the reality. Okay? Questions? Well, these are the questions the transport manager should ask, because they're the questions the driver are asking. When the driver did his test, number one concern was comfort and safety of your passengers. Where's the driver? Has he got suitable sleeping facilities? Are the passengers comfortable and safe? He's either on the bus, hopefully he's got a cushion. Is it soundproof? No. Then there's 50 school kids screaming and yelling because they're being sent to bed at 6 o'clock. And they're hungry, they're thirsty, and they want a loo. Or it is soundproof, in which case you can have a nice sleep, but if anything went wrong, he'd never know about it. Are they comfortable and safe? No. Or he's off the bus, at home in his own bed. Has he locked the coach? Has he locked them in? Is the coach locked? Is it safe from intruders or people wandering off? Are the passengers comfortable and safe? No. It's the same laws, it's the same question, it's the same answer. Disaster, different consequences, and different implementation. So that's one of the main differences between the haulage and the passenger industry. Structural composition. I did a quick estimate of just the shell of things like tractors, lorries, buses. Anybody want to make a guess at what the other is? Spot on. Bananas are better than passengers because if you scrape a wall or get sideswiped by a lorry, bananas get showered by bananas don't get showered by flying glass. This was my service bus I was driving. It got sideswiped by a tractor doing 40 miles an hour. Those windows imploded. Didn't explode, they imploded, injuring 6 passengers. You can see the ambulance just in front of it. A few years ago, a passenger was killed when a coach lost control, hit a Cornish wall, and one of the passengers was killed by lacerations from glass. Thank you for that. Bananas are better than passengers because if a lorry catches fire, you don't have to get the bananas out. The DVSA recently did an investigation into bus fires. This is quite complicated. It basically says, do your maintenance on time, do your maintenance properly, do everything the manufacturer says, RTFM, which is read the manual. Something like that, thank you. I was restraining myself. This is again, this is all the DVSA's figures. 242 bus fires in the last 4 years. I believe the number of injuries was 0. When you think about it, a bus has 50 passengers. That's the potential for 12,000 passengers to be in peril. Okay. Those are roughly the causes. Interesting that 88 are unknown. 46 are the wrong components or component failures, especially lithium batteries. Electrical faults, and the rest maintenance or engine failure. How do we keep those fires, those injuries to 0? The DVSA say, let's do this. The bit in red being the most poignant. The bus driver is to have a clear understanding of bus evacuation procedures. I completely understand that. That's perfectly reasonable. I drive a school bus several times. In the last few months, I have 50 passengers on. When it goes at school, when it gets to school, 25 of them are trying to come down the staircase. I cannot possibly get up that staircase. If I'm up the staircase and there's children coming down, I can't get down the staircase. The official CPC transport, the official driver's CPC advice on bus evacuation is all out, stay out, brigade out. Get all the passengers out, keep them away from the vehicle, call the fire brigade. They don't tell me how to do that. They don't tell me how to get up to the upper deck. Should I be up on the upper deck supervising evacuation? Should I be on the lower deck? Supposing the kids try to open the emergency door at the back and the fire's right underneath them. Supposing they're trying to get out of the roadside door in heavy traffic. What I am going to do today is say, let's have a little call to action. If you look at, or if you type in bus evacuation procedures into Google, it will come up with literally hundreds of evacuation videos, all American. Every county in every state in America has their own procedure, their own videos. Everybody knows exactly what to do. We don't have that here. Today, we have Highways Agency, HSE, DVSA, traffic commissioners, the police. What would happen if we all got together and said, let's have a unified method that is broadcast to schools and operators, that everybody knows how to evacuate a bus. This morning, the first thing Andrew did was, if there's a fire, you go that way. Buildings have it, schools have it, aeroplanes have it, buses don't. So, that is my call to action. I'm going to leave you with a lasting thought. After each run, the driver should check for wayward passengers, some who might be confused, lost property, damage, etc. Bananas are better than passengers because before you run back to depot, you don't have to check for bananas that have had a skinful. I was fortunate to be a bus coordinator at the 2014 Commonwealth Games. And this note came around saying a lot of athletes have been leaving stuff on the buses and it's difficult to get it back. So can all the drivers do an extra sweep? So this bus rolled up to me in the layover area, and I said to the driver, "Had a good day?" And he said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Did you see the edict that came out today?" He said, "I've been driving for 20 years. He says, "No, I did do a bus sweep." I said, "Have you done one today?" He said, "Oh yeah." I said, "Why are there two athletes up on the top deck then?" Right, that's me done. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope I've given you some thoughts today.
Thank you, Chris. Who's got a banana in the bag with them today? Are you going to take special care of that banana on the way home? Okay, I've got one in my bag. Go everywhere with my banana. I think throw it open to questions for the audience. Anybody got any questions for Chris before we sort of touch? Anybody within the coach industry here? Just hold on. I'll bring the mic to you. I've got to bring the mic to you because they need to record. They're doing the sound. Well, no question's stupid.
You haven't met me. I'm interested, will the legislation be any different for electric buses? Do you think there might be more, given that they're more prone to fire and accident, or, well, certainly fire?
Can you just repeat your question for me?
Do you foresee, or is there any different legislation, any different guidance for electric buses?
Not that I'm aware of. But,
okay. Do you think there should be?
I guess so.
Oh, good.
As I said, if you look back, one of these, that one, vehicle component failures, 46, a lot of those are lithium batteries. They're brand new and they're finding out that they're overheating and being charged wrongly. That's causing them to catch fire. A lot of them are catching fire in the depot because they're being charged wrongly. It's again, RTFM, read the manufacturer's recommendations on how to charge and how to look after your batteries properly and they won't catch fire. That's in the internet at the moment. So yes, there probably is different legislation. It's probably a bit new and hopefully it'll be understood as the years go on.
That's a really good question that you've raised. Not a stupid question. That's a really good question, because should we ask the guys at DVSA whether there needs to be a change in legislation? Which one wants to take the mic?
Okay, so alternatively fueled vehicles. So there's all sorts out there. So there are, if you like, different risks to that. But actually, it doesn't change the legislation of how they alter. The thing that will change the legislation is autonomous vehicles as we're going forward. So autonomous and semi-autonomous. And I think you'll find then the alternative fuel side will be integrated with that.
Very good politician's answer that, wasn't it? Hey. Does anybody understand that? No, okay. You're on next, Phil. Don't forget. So you got the audience here. I think instead of asking the question then if there are any bus operators here, how many of you have kids that use the bus to go to school in the room? Anybody? Hands up, please. Hands up, please. Hands up, please. How many of us use the bus ourselves? Yeah. So these things that Chris has highlighted in relation to evacuation, we wouldn't get on a plane if we didn't know how to get out of it. We wouldn't get on a boat if we didn't know how to get off and where the lifeboats were. But we're happy to drive a car and it breaks down and we don't know what to do when we break down. Call the AA. Don't know where to stand, don't know how to use the emergency refuge areas on the motorways properly or whatever. We use public transport. I don't think there's anything on trains either to say what to do.
There's instructions.
Some, yeah, okay. Yeah. So I think the issue here is when we look at the incidents, particularly the one on the M53 in the Wirral a couple of weeks ago with the school children, as you've highlighted the school kids. Do we know how many people were actually on that bus or those buses at the time? And was there a register for them? That if an incident like this happened, would you know if your relative was on a school bus and was involved in an incident like this, that they were safe and sound afterwards? Because the operator didn't have a record of who was on the bus. I've dealt with a number of incidents over the years involving, needless to say, I think Phil started the day by stereotyping some examples in Liverpool of poor operators. Okay, Carolyn, be careful, be careful. So I did a number of investigations involving supporters club for Liverpool Football Club, travelling from Carlisle to a match down in London about 10 years ago. One of the buses had a collision, but there was 150 claims made. Okay. And when we went back to the operator and said, can you tell me where all the pickup points were? The names of everybody on the bus, they couldn't because they didn't keep any records. So one of the things we suggested to Zurich was for their operators at the time, part of their policy requirements was that they had to keep records of everybody on privately hired buses every time they were used. And if they failed to do it, they would not indemnify them if a claim came in. And boy, oh boy, did those records start being kept. Okay? So there's some simple solutions to these things, but I think what Chris has said is very, very relevant. I think there's been a call to action makes changes. And if the right people make that call to action, and that can start with people like ourselves within the industry, who are speaking today, but also yourselves, think about it. Would you really trust an operator who doesn't keep proper records, doesn't maintain their vehicle properly, to take you or any of your family anywhere? I wouldn't. And just touching on the last aspect here, in respect of the fires, the electrical, the fire brigades are still learning how to deal with electrical vehicle fires as well. They need to send 2 appliances to 1 electrical vehicle breakdown rate these days in case something happens, because the manpower is far greater. So those of us who have electric vehicles, be mindful of that. Following the manufacturer's instructions on how to charge and maintain your vehicle properly. Because the fire brigade, some sections of it, have told their staff not to approach the fire until the vehicle has been disconnected. So that means somebody could be sat in the vehicle while the fire's going and the fire brigade won't go to it. So there's lots of things we have to think about from a safety perspective. And I think you've raised a really, really good point there, Chris. So thank you, Chris.
Can I ask one more question?
You can ask a question.
Very quick show of hands. Anybody here experienced or been involved with a bus fire? Yeah. Oh, well done. What happened to you, sir?
I don't know whether that's well done, Chris, or it was, I think a bit unfortunate, sir. You've come out of it very well.
I was expecting 0, to be honest. So, what happened?
Decker ran on. B10 Decker ran on. So it just started to self-combust on its own oil.
Not nice. Yeah. I had an electrical fault. I've never seen it before. You know, you have those little icons when you switch the ignition on, and it has little tiny icons everywhere, and you check them. This one came up, the whole dashboard, that size, a klaxon went off. It came up absolutely red, and it said, engine bay fire. It was fairly explicit. And I won't explain how quickly I managed to stop the vehicle with the DVSA here, but it was quite an unnerving experience.
Okie dokie. All right, thank you again, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you. Cheers.